This is Maharajas of Scale, a podcast where we go behind the scenes and talk to founders who are demolishing the myths around building and scaling a big business in India. These are the stories that have shattered the assumptions around Indian consumers and are changing the game completely. I am Krishna Jonakadla, serial entrepreneur, co-founder of Flit, the fashion locator in town, and startup mentor, bringing you these stories. Hey everyone, this is your host Krishna from Maharajas of Scale. Today we have the lovely and beautiful Rashi Narang of Heads Up for Tails, who's actually changing the paradigm of what it takes to be a pet parent. And I've always read the term pet owner. And then when I read the brief about Rashi's startup, she calls them pet parents. Therein lies the huge difference in terms of how she sees pets. Rashi, it's so wonderful to have you. Welcome to the show. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on right now.
Thank you, Krishna. I'm really, really happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. Just a little about myself. I started Heads Up for Tails back in 2008. And so it's been a long journey and a little bit of very much of a roller coaster ride. And we're continuously working on building products that connect people to their pets and help pets live better lives. So there's lots of new stuff in the pipeline, just planning out the year ahead. It's very exciting. We're getting into food tech. We're trying all sorts of things. We have already introduced, more than 200 India first products, and just building out on that every day in the hope that we can add joy to pets and their families, one home at a time.
Very interesting, terrific. You put in a lot in that very short and sweet introduction. Tell us a little bit about your current scale and a little bit of your spread, just a little of how you've grown over the years.
Sure. So if you want a comparison, we started out as a tiny homegrown business, literally, out of home, almost no investment, just a couple of products. And, we are now at 38 stores nationwide. Well, primarily metros with a couple more in fit out. So we hope to be at about 60 in the next year. Lots of leases being signed, etc. Plus, we've grown strongly online as well, and the focus, to be honest, has been offline until last year, because the category was new, and we wanted people to come into the stores to experience the variety and to be able to educate them through one-to-one interactions, which has worked very well for us. And now we're looking at scaling a lot more online. Last month we had a very interesting month. We had, more than almost 40,000 customers shop with us. So it's been an amazingly awesome journey, very challenging, but that's where we are in terms of scale at the moment.
And you're saying challenging with a big smile, and that just tells me what sort of an entrepreneur you are. I think we are going to have a terrific session. So let's go to the beginning. The spark. 2008, gosh, it's been 12 years now since you got started, or maybe we are in 2021 already. That's like 13 years.
Yes.
If you just consider the starting years. What was that starting spark?
The starting spark was a special dog who came into my life and changed everything. And I think dogs have the ability to do that into every life that they enter, which is why I was telling you just before that it's time for you to get home one. But I got a little puppy, and even though I've grown up with dogs, Krishna, she was the first one that I was responsible for. Otherwise, it was always family dogs. And now I was just recently married, and I said I need a puppy in my life. And when I got her, I was solely responsible. And I remember just looking around for products, and I couldn't find anything. And on her birthday, I came home with nothing. And I think that's when I realized that there's a big white space here, a big gap where pet parents like myself who want to get home the best for their furry family member really don't have enough options. And that was the little spark.
So, and when you say products, these weren't basic essentials like
absolutely
the pet, but
yes.
something more. So
I was looking for very basic stuff like a toy or a nice collar. Even that was not available, and the pet industry has come a long way, but that was the spark then.
Very interesting. So then, what did you set about working on? It is when you decided, and let's unpack that a little. You went searching for something for your dog, and then you came back. Not everyone comes back and then tells, "Okay, I'm furnishing my room." For instance, if we were to draw an analogy, you move into a new city. Let's say I'm furnishing my apartment. Okay, I don't see this, so let me just start a business. That very rarely happens, right? So, but unpack that a little more and say, because that means a couple of things. One is you love your dog a lot, and it drove you so much emotionally to say, man, I want my puppy to have it. So if it doesn't exist, I'm actually going to bring it to life, so to speak, right? So unpack that a little.
Well, I think I just knew that this is it.
Okay.
I came home and I remember calling, a friend of mine and saying, you know what, I just couldn't find anything and I just want to build it out. Like I just knew somehow in my heart, and you're right. I mean, you don't do that with stuff that you don't find normally.
Right.
But and it just came together in that one moment, because I've always loved animals. I've always wanted to do something with them, but I wasn't looking. And it was just that 1 second, and it just came together.
Very interesting. So, and then what did you start with? How long did it take you? And what was the initial launch like?
So I basically started looking at the Indian market, trying to find reports, trying to find any, pet companies, trying to just look at what was there already. And honestly, there was nothing. There were no companies. There was just one or two local manufacturers, very basic stores. So really no one that I could learn from. So really, I made a basic business plan and all that, but I don't think I ever looked at it again, because I just had to learn on the job. I remember I could not find a single manufacturer. I couldn't find anyone to come and do anything for us, because if I said, okay, this is for dogs, they would take huge offense. And, it was just so new. So I just started out with thinking that, okay, what could be stuff that I could do in-house, which would be fabric related. And I started out with bedding and clothing and, stuff like that. And then we moved on to lots of different categories, but just even cracking that took forever. I mean, I learned everything. This was not my background. I had done my master's in HR and had got some experience in that field. So I literally just went from vendor to vendor, market to market, asking questions, trying different fabrics, seeing, what's suitable for dogs, learning about allergies, patterns, body patterns, making sure that what we're building out doesn't constrict them in any way. They can still jump, run around, understanding different coats, double coat versus a single coat, which dog needs warmer clothes, different shapes of beds, how they sleep. Some dogs sleep round, some dogs sleep lying down, like they lay out flat. So there was lots of learning about the species and about materials, and then how bringing them together, and then about the manufacturing process in general, so that's really just it. And it was literally just learning and failing and trying and learning on the job every day.
Very interesting. And all of this just for the home-based store that you kicked off back then?
Yes.
My God. Has there been a entrepreneurship or a business streak in the family? Is that how all of this comes, or was it just pure passion?
Well, I think it was huge. It is hugely passion-led, but I've also always been an entrepreneur ever since I was little. I think I started selling Christmas cards in the colony when I was 5 years old, and, doing all sorts of things. So I definitely have that entrepreneurial streak, and I know I always wanted to do something, but I think that I couldn't have embarked on something like this without really knowing what I was building out. I had to dig in and make sure that what I was doing was enhancing the lives, of these amazing animals in whatever little way. And I think it would have just been disservice to not have done that correctly.
Interesting. So then from that first time, how long did this research take and what did you actually launch?
It took a couple of months, about 6 months. And then I launched a small range of bedding and accessories and clothing. I took it to lots of pet stores in the country, more than 200. I still have the Excel sheet. Everybody said no. Each of those 200 said no, this is not going to work. Who are you? Why are you here? Please leave. And that was just like a huge, period of rejection. And so I had already built up stock. And my friends seemed to love what I had done. My own dogs and family dogs seemed to have, be liking it. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start taking part in some pop-up exhibitions to liquidate the stock because I had already built it up. And there the response was so different. People were excited. They had so many questions. It sold really well. And it was just encouraging, and just having those conversations and understanding people's pain points is when, things started to build up. Because first we started to solve for design sensibility. And then we started to solve for real pain points and real problems only by being close to the customers, versus selling through another pet store, etc., etc. So, every day whenever I was taking part in these pop-up events, I was having these conversations, and people would say, oh, you know what, can you make this? My dog has this problem. And for example, I remember a customer saying, listen, my Cocker Spaniel, whenever he eats his food, his ears are so long, they get dirty and I have to clean them after every meal. So we built out a bowl which was longer with a narrower top, so that the ears fall outside. And like that, we have innovated non-stop, only because of being close to our customers, and gotten into so many categories which are actually solving real problems every day.
And so the initial spark, and when you did put that initial bedding and fabric line together, did you do any live research or live tryouts with a few animals, or was it mostly the kind of puppies that you own, and then a lot of it was based on conjecture and then going around to stores? How was that part?
We did a little bit. So, a lot of my family and friends have pets. So I was sending it to them, which is where the first set of encouragement came to even move forward. They said, yes, they love it. This is a really, different product. It's great. It looks good in my home. It's not a bed that I want to hide from everyone. It's comfortable. It's easy to use. It's long lasting. Same with, clothing or accessories or, slowly toys, etc., etc. So all of it was tried with my dogs, and then, with a closer circle before we brought it out to the market.
So you mentioned family. So let's talk family for a second. And you sort of made a passing mention of the fact that you were just recently married when this happened, right? That's a lot to take on right after marriage, isn't it? It's like unless there is an environment for it, it's like telling your husband, and I'm not even going to go into the woman side of the angle here. It's like saying, telling him, hey, look, I have this puppy, and we'll come to that. You can tell us whether your husband is fond of pets or not. And this is what I'm thinking. And that must have meant, so you first newly married, inspired by a need.
Yes.
And you go about doing this research.
Yes.
Rejection from over 200 stores. And then when you decide that this is not happening and then let me liquidate it, is when you start getting real feedback from the market, so to speak. It's sort of like flying over peaks and valleys in just a few seconds. So if you unpack a few family reactions, what was it? Didn't you feel overwhelmed to take on something of this sort right after wedding? And what was that journey like?
It was crazy. It was extremely overwhelming because I don't know this just possessed me, like I was just so driven, and yet having to, be a new daughter-in-law and a new wife and so many new roles that, were thrown at me, in a big joint family. And I remember just being so obsessed, and everybody was like, what is wrong with you? And it was very challenging because, just our Indian families that's just our culture. They do demand so much, of a woman, especially a newly married woman. There's so many relationships and there's so much to be done. And I really did struggle. But I was just consumed by this. It just made me happy. I just, that's all I could think about. And I'm very grateful in hindsight of how accepting everybody was. And of course, there were everyday challenges for time, for, so many things. But overall, everybody has been very supportive in the family and really sort of encouraged me. I think at first everybody was like, okay, this is just a small little hobby. I don't know why she's being so obsessive. But I think over the years, as we've grown, their perspective has also changed, and they also view it differently, which is nice. But overall, I've always got support, regardless of the fact that they didn't quite understand what I was setting out to do.
Interesting. What are the families like? Are they businessmen? They're into business themselves, or they're professionals?
Yes, my husband's family, is a business family. So was mine. But yes, they did support despite not quite grasping exactly what I was setting out to do. Yeah.
Did you get more than emotional support? Was there, let's get our hands dirty and then help Rashi? She's so driven by it. And was there something of that sort as well, or was it largely?
It was largely emotional. And of course, every now and then before an exhibition, and I was up till 3:00 in the morning, everybody would say, okay, can we help you tag something, write out something, little bit here and there. But I think I'm very grateful. Just the emotional bit was also just really nice to have. And now 2 years ago, my husband joined the business as well. So I think that's when they really were like, okay, this is something. So it's been a good journey.
Interesting. So the initial launch, liquidation, and around the time you were considering liquidation, or rather actually liquidating stock through the pop-ups, was when you started getting validation.
Yes.
And so what was a personal notion was sort of being endorsed by real consumers. You were getting feedback, you're working on products. And then what happened? What happened next?
Then I went for a coffee to a mall in Delhi called Select City Walk. It had just opened, and it's one of the best malls in the country. And they had these tiny little kiosks where small businesses were displaying products. And I had not seen that format before. So I went and talked to the mall management, and they said it's, so many lakhs for the month. And I said, what? Please, can I just take it for the weekend? And they said, we don't do contracts for a weekend, what is wrong with you? We have compliances and law and, our own policies. But I begged them, and they did give it to me for a weekend. And that was in 2008, and I'm still there. I did not leave. So I think that really being in a place where you are accessible and available to people of all walks of life, just that huge visibility that it gave us really was a big stepping stone, because we grew from that tiny kiosk to a bigger one, to a small store, to a little bigger store, now to a fairly medium-sized store. And, we've been there for so long. We've had customers who've come as little puppies, and now we have senior dogs, and we've been through with them on that entire journey. And every day we were able to, I was standing there talking to people, getting feedback, knowing, just fast failing, right? This is working, this is not working, let's try something different, price points, everything. So I think that was, that first milestone, which helped a lot of other things come about, because, you're in a very prominent place and getting a lot of visibility. People were talking about us in their own small little ways about dogs. So the conversation, the brand was coming up in conversations. Okay, have you heard of Heads Up for Tails? I bought this from there, because the products were never seen before in the Indian market. So people used to just stop and be like, is this for dogs? And a lot of the times they would say, they would confuse it for children, and they would say 5 saal ke liye kya hai? And we'd say, no, this is for dogs. And some people would have a great laugh, and others would be like, oh my God, are you serious? Like, really big offense, like, how could I have made such a blunder? So it was just interesting to see reactions. And also I have to tell you, Krishna, that I've seen an amazing evolvement of the bond between people with their pets then to now. So a lot of people then were like, acha, we have a guard dog, he's outside at the gate, I don't want something like this, he'll tear it, he'll spoil it. To now, where they're not just inside our homes and our hearts, but they're also inside our beds. I mean, like, it's become very different, in the last many years. Like, they're truly companions, they're true family members. So I think that was a big space where we could face to face get lots of access.
So this is, I think, in sense, sort of tying with the way India itself is growing, isn't it?
Yes.
People are mobile, and the more mobile and away from homes that they are, changing jobs and completely coming into newer urban spaces. And urban spaces can be energizing and tyrannical at the same time, right? So you have this feeling that, hey, there is so much for me to do here. Yes. And at the same time, yet I am lonely. This is a whole huge metroplex in front of me, and I feel lonely. And so dogs fill that void so beautifully. Absolutely. Right? So I think in some sense looks like you are growing with, because even back then, at least in 2008, around the time you started, maybe the breeds of the animals, barring a few pockets across India, right? Even in Bangalore, if we take Bangalore as an example, there were just a couple of pockets, a defense colony maybe, where people who had traveled overseas and in some sense had warmed up to this concept of a pet. And the other ones were slightly different. And we've always had this socialist notion that anything other than thinking about the poor was totally wrong. And if you made anything, अच्छा पागल हो, लोगों के लिए खाने के लिए नहीं है, तुम ये बना रहे हो. So it's sort of like a universal refrain saying, other than just being an agrarian economy and then just being in the circle of doing really poor things, we shouldn't be doing anything else.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, listen, for us, I think the thought really goes very deep. It goes, I mean, if you talk to anybody who has this bond, Krishna, you'll know that when you share your life, when you have the privilege of sharing your life with an animal, you become a much better version of yourself, because animals just see the good in us, and that inspires you to be better. And so for us, it's always been so deep, because we actually feel that the more we can encourage people to be responsible pet parents and open their hearts and homes, the more compassion, more empathy, more kindness will come out in people, and it just shifts the world in those tiny little ways, So for us, the feeling is very deep, and it's as much as saying, "Ke, acha, let's feed the poor," because it really is. It's very deep, that the whole notion is that we can make the world a little bit kinder and more empathetic.
Let's dig in deep a little more into that 200 odd stores that you approached. How was that? You said they were pan-India.
Yes, they were pan-India. They were just small. They were run by people, many of them who didn't have pets. So there was no passion. And I think that they didn't understand their consumers, sadly. So it was just somebody coming in saying, do you have a collar? Yes, here's a collar. And that was it. There was no education. There was no value add. There was no interaction per se. And so when I came up with this collection and I went to them, they didn't understand it at all. They said, no, this is not going to work. Our customers are not going to buy this, and that was that. I mean, I remember just one after the other, closed door, I said, have I made a big mistake? And I said, it just wasn't coming together, because on one side, my friends and everybody was so excited. And on the other hand, it was just one after the other. 200 stores is a long list of stores. So it was not a very happy time.
What, Bombay, Delhi, did you fly south as well? Or?
Everywhere.
How were the reach outs? Remote, or did you end up traveling to them?
I traveled wherever I went, I would take my products. Otherwise, phone calls and emails and, all of that stuff, just sending across the catalog, following it up with a call. They're just not interested at all.
Very. So at that point in time, I'm quite. What strikes me as very interesting is that you kept track of the number, and you said you still have a spreadsheet of all the stores that actually turned you down. In some sense, a video is in my mind is playing that someday I'm going to show you that.
Actually, it was just a list of stores, and I have a cross against all of them. Like they said no, they said no, they said no. It was more like that. But
something else struck me while you were talking about it. When you reached out to these store owners, many of them were not even pet owners, right?
Yeah.
I've always had this notion that many times you have to feel the problem that the customer is feeling in order to be able to really offer something of substance to them, right?
Absolutely.
The first one is feel, and then if you really been there and done that, and that takes your whatever you are able to offer to them to a wholly different level, right?
Sure.
Which is one of the big reasons we speak to founders only, because the founders are walking the talk.
Yeah.
Right. So very interesting. And in those 200, hardly any pet owners. That's quite amazing and surprising at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't have an exact count, but I remember from their conversations, they just, I asked a couple of them, and they're like, looking at me with like strange faces, like, no, of course, and I thought that was so strange. And I also want to mention, because you wanted me to unpack the start, in 2008, we also launched an online store, which I got a 10th grade student to design for me. It was pretty cool, for 10,000 rupees, I remember. And, we started at the same time as Flipkart, pretty much. So we were one of the few internet companies even then. And I remember I'd get one order a week, Krishna, and I used to be on top of the world, because this was somebody I did not know from Bangalore or Hyderabad or wherever, who had found me organically and placed an order. And that was just like so exciting. Of course, now e-commerce is so much easier, but then there was just nothing. You had to build from scratch. Everything had to be built from scratch.
Right. And there was just one aspect, though, expectations were a little toned down as opposed to what you have today, because there's so much variety and so much availability. Definitely a lot different. So today when we are chatting in 2021, it's been 13 years. I've always felt this, that when we reflect, for instance, when I go back and look at the home that I grew up as a child in, somehow in my mind it looks bigger, right? But when I actually look at it, I have to look at my room and say, really, was this a room that I grew up in? It makes me wonder.
Yeah.
But back then, pet business is one thing, obviously retailing. How did you see the business back then? Did you always see yourself as somebody who made product for pets, and therefore you would distribute these products? And the South Delhi store was more of a showcase store, if you will, for people to come and take a look? What was the vision back then? Because today you've definitely grown. You become, in some sense, a company-owned, company-operated chain, where you're making your own products and you're retailing your own products as well, right? Was it always a concept, and how did that evolve?
Yes, it was always about disruption, not even disruption. I would say it was always about building the industry, because it just didn't exist. It was so fragmented, so disorganized, and so small. So it was really about building it from scratch. And we've also had to educate a lot during the way to build demand for our products. So, people used to ask, why does a dog need a toy? They've not grown. I mean, in the wild, they don't have a toy. And, so we've had to educate them, saying, listen, here is a being with, very strong senses, who, for example, in the forest would, hear and feel and taste and smell 100 different things, versus being in a small apartment where they have nothing to do, right? How are you going to mentally stimulate them? It is not fair to, keep a wild animal like that without understanding that they have the requirements of their senses being stimulated. So we've had to really work hard on educating people on, you can't really give a dog doodh and roti. That is not their species appropriate food, or just the fact that they need mental stimulation, they need their walks. How do you walk a dog? How do you build that relationship and that bond so that you can really be everywhere with them? How do you train them so that you don't have to lock them up every time a guest comes, or, you don't have to give them away if you're having a child in the family, and how precious it can be if it all comes together beautifully. So we've had to, build, educate, and grow with that vision. And I think it still stands today, because in the global perspective, we're still a very tiny market, very, very tiny. It's just about getting there where people are even taking the time out to learn, or taking the time out to understand that I'm sharing my home with a species that is different from me. And our message is that you have to, as a responsible person, understand that species. They aren't the same as us, and we have to do what's right for them. So it has been a lot of work, even to build demand for what we're doing, and just making people understand that.
So that ties in very well with what I had in mind next. So then when did the second store happen? How long did it take? And what happened in between?
Well, you will be surprised to know, actually, but my husband got posted overseas. So I went away for 7 years.
Wow.
And I came back in 2015, and that's when the next store happened. In 2000.
Talk about the 7 years. It feels like one of these mythical movies, right? She kept the flame burning, and then she actually entrusted it to this person, and then you come back and this old man dusts off something. बेटी जब तुम चली गई थी, मैंने इसका देखभाल किया. So I'm just mystifying it, but talk about that period. What was going on in your mind? Because 2008, being transferred to overseas is, in India at least, working overseas is still considered prestigious, right? Although that notion is changing. अच्छा हम जा रहे हैं. Chalo, tum sab log, all of you, so there's that notion. What were the emotions going on in your mind at that time? You just started a business and it was maybe taking root.
Yes.
And this happened.
This happened in early 2009. It was that fast. And there was everybody thought I was crazy that I wasn't even thinking of closing it down and saying, okay, now I'm moving overseas. I said, no, this is going to run. I'll come back as often as I need to. So I came back once every 3 months.
Wow.
I had no choice but to keep it running small. I didn't have any finances to have a big team. I just had, a couple of very junior people, 1 or 2 people for sales at the kiosk. It was very hard, but honestly, it was about, like you said, keep the fire burning, keep the flame low. It should just not, wear out.
Right.
But I didn't know how long it's going to be. So I said, okay, we didn't know whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and 7 years is a long time.
Yeah.
To continuously shuttle back and forth, but I did whatever I could, and I don't think I could have done any more. and that's just, I mean, it gave me some time. I mean, it helped me to, I was in Singapore where the retail business is huge, and retail is as evolved as it can be. So, I used to really enjoy spending time just understanding how that is built out. And it was just observation, but, it gave me that perspective that I want to be able to take this global one day. I want it to be world class. It gave me that exposure of what a discerning customer wants. And now after so many years, we want to go back to Singapore and, disrupt that market at some point.
Interesting. And so talk about the financial angle a bit when this happened. This means, I'm just thinking aloud here, does it mean that you were turning a profit as a result of which, because it's one thing to be able to be away, and a totally different thing if it is not financially making sense.
Yeah.
At some point in time, you're going to turn around and say, this is not making sense. So therefore, and the fact that I'm actually away and not able to be hands-on with this, however passionate you are, you're going to ask some questions of yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Talk about that angle a bit.
We were bootstrapped all those years, and I put in all my savings to start it from my previous jobs. Whatever I had wasn't much, but every now and then we wanted to expand, and we didn't have any funds, so we just had no choice but to keep it at that cycle where whatever little was being made was being plowed back. But you know what, Krishna, I never asked myself those questions because I knew in my heart that just the time wasn't right. And I knew that once I was back on the ground, this could be bigger than I could have ever imagined. And so like that never bothered me. I mean, sure, it helped that my husband was an earning member, and I didn't have to worry about everyday expenses. But that said, I'm still a very proud person, and I like to be very independent in my finances and all of that stuff. Somehow I was okay with like that very tight bootstrapped feeling for the longest time, just knowing that I'm keeping the fire burning. That was my only aim. Just stay, put your head out of the water and stay there. Do not let it drown. That's it. So that was just it for so long.
So the business was self-sustainable, although
yes.
it wasn't a lifestyle business where you would make a profit out of it and say, okay, I can run my life also. But otherwise, your goal was to take that and make the business sustainable, and to the extent possible, if you could expand, potentially that was the other angle you were looking at.
Yes, absolutely.
And when you left it, there must have been somebody able, capable, that like the old man I gave in that tale, who looked after this with a certain degree of love, because what you must have left behind is not just a store that sourced a set of products from a set of people, right? You created a whole new category.
Absolutely.
You created some vendors and some sourcing people that are making this from the grounds up, and therefore how did that happen? That must have been, you had good people, and talk about that a little bit.
Well, initially there wasn't anyone, but along that 7-year-old journey, I did have a couple of people who joined the team, who were passionate. They were still very junior, so not able to like run the business, but with, a little bit of supervision or just requests, they were able to, carry on basic responsibilities on the ground. So it was really, really base level. And I'm very grateful to each of them, because without them, even that wouldn't have been possible. And they, we didn't have money to pay big salaries and all of that. So it was just people with passion and love, and literally, that's what sustained it all that while.
Very amazing, because for instance, in India, there are a lot of NRIs that own property here.
Right.
And a property does not require anywhere the kind of maintenance and then care that a business like this one requires. And this is not even a regular business, right? It's a very niche, unique business back then. While it's a little more scaled, even today, it's still a niche business. The fact that you were able to keep it alive for such a long time speaks volumes, I think, for your passion. Was it this dogged belief that I am going to come back someday, and then this is going to happen? And I suppose that it also played with the fact that you didn't have a certain timeline for your husband's being away, right? So if it originally was like, okay, you're away for 7 years, you would have possibly taken a hard look at it and said, okay, this is 7 years.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a long time, Krishna. So I absolutely, if I had known it was going to be 7 years of a lot of anguish on the professional side, but, great personal life, I may have said, never mind, let me just enjoy my personal life right now and come back to this. But it was just year after year. And then finally I said, okay, I am done. I have to go and do this because it's going to eat me up otherwise. So I moved back. And then, that's when that was our second inning. And that's when we really started the current expansion.
So did he move back, or it was mostly your decision to move back?
Well, it was mine. And so we did a little bit of back and forth for the next year. And then he moved back. He realized that, this girl needs to do what she needs to do for this. And then, so then now we're here and, really trying to relentlessly build this out as best as we can.
So when you look back at that, you spoke about the Singapore retail scene. And funnily enough, well, it's a great city country, right? So it's a city country. I think today, maybe not way back then, the retail scene in India wasn't that evolved. India, for its size, I think will keep evolving for the next couple of centuries, right? But I think if anybody goes to Singapore today, because of the fact that, to use a technical trade term, it's an entrepot trade city where two nations that don't necessarily like each other can use Singapore as a trading outpost, right?
Yes.
A lot of goods transit, and in some sense, it's sort of like a proxy until Chinese centers emerged. It was still a proxy, or rather another version of what you see in the West, right? So the shopping cities of London and then New York. And then if you were to speak about something, it was in Asia. But a lot of Indian cities, I think Singapore is now dwarfed by a lot of Indian cities as far as the retail scene is concerned.
Yes.
So if looking back, do you think it was in some sense a blessing in disguise? The time was long, but you were niche. The country was Indian pet ownership or pet being a pet parent. That concept was still evolving.
Yeah.
And then Indian retail scene itself was evolving, right? And the Indian consumer was evolving post 2008 when the financial crisis happened. While the Indian economy was largely unscared, came out unscared. A lot of economic growth happened post that, right? So in some sense, I'm just thinking, you got the opportunity to learn something else, see a totally different retail scene, a totally different world, and come back and say, now this place is ready, and then let's get rocking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're very right. I mean, I think the timing was good, but I have to say that it was very agonizing, to say, why can't I sell more? Why am I not getting enough customers? It's so tiny. How will it grow? And to feel that feeling for such a long time, and to feel helpless in many ways that, you're running this, but, and that it can do 100, but it's doing 2 because, you're not there, you don't have the money, you don't have, people with expertise, all of that. So it was I wouldn't change it. I really wouldn't. But I have to tell you that while I was going through it, it was lots of agony. And I'm also very grateful for the digital age, Krishna. I mean, if this was 50 years ago, there's no way. But I used to do, Skype calls with my store. I put a CCTV camera. I could see what's going on. I was on emails, product development, research, all that, everything, SEO, website, everything, was still happening, and it could happen, just because we're in the digital age. So, lots of learnings, good things, some challenges, but I guess that's just the way it is.
In my mind, I see that how much of a gut instinct you have. They say, successful entrepreneurs come to understand and trust their gut. It sounds good in a story, but to be able to hold that for 7-8 years and continue to feel that I feel this gut, I know it, I feel it in my bones that this is it, and I'm just going to make it happen. I think it's a testimony to that. So let's talk about the period after. Then 2015 came back, and then and then talk about that journey.
So lots happened. We raised money from sort of family, friends, HNIs, small round. We acquired. Actually not acquired, but we merged with another pet store in Bangalore. They were the only ones along the way who said, yes, Rashi, we love your stuff. And so we became friends and partners, and, it just was a very natural flow that, why should we operate one? Let's just make it two together and grow it. And so that happened. And then we started off with our store expansions. We did a couple in Delhi, couple in Bangalore. Again, went wrong with some locations, did really well in the others. It was a very steep learning curve to understand even retail and the processes and the operations and the government and the laws and the 100 rules and compliances, and it was crazy. And but I think that even my co-founders and all of us feel really passionately, and for all of us, I think it's our purpose, and it's not like we are building a business to exit in so and so time and get that valuation and step out. It was really like coming from a space of we have to be able to speak for these animals. We have to be able to create products which are comfortable. We have to change the way that people look at them. And I think it was just so much hustle and so much push, relentless to learning, trying. We made gazillions of hiring mistakes. Even with money, even with that little bit of seed funding, there is so many constraints to hiring people with talent because they are expensive. So again, we had basic teams, struggle, but every day was just learning, which was just amazing.
So we'll dig in a little more deep on that one. Contrast three things. One is numbers when you left in 2008.
Okay.
Numbers when you came back in 2015, and numbers today.
Oh gosh, when I left, it was nothing. I was really little. I'd say maybe 10-15 lakhs a year.
Okay.
When I came back, we were doing about 1 crore a year. So I did manage to push it, whatever little bit. Last financial year, we just closed at 50. And I'm hoping that this financial year will close at about 70, 80. We lost a couple of months because of COVID, lockdown, store closures, but we've really tried to make up for it.
How many unique pets have you served? I don't know if you even track that number.
I don't have that number on the top of my mind. I'm sure if I dig into
some
data.
Some ballpark. How many dogs?
At least a few 100,000 easily.
Okay. 500,000 perhaps? Or is it a stretch?
I maybe a little bit less, because a lot of our customers are repeat. They come back again and again for, food and grooming and treats and toys. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's very far from that number. It really isn't. For all these years, it may even be more, but I don't know. I don't know.
So maybe so in terms of customers, then 3 lakh customers, 3-4 lakh customers?
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Interesting. So the retail 2015, there's one thing which intrigues me, and that is that you came back and it was about store expansion.
Yes.
Okay. And it meant that it was really about the offline game.
Yes.
You still had a website going. You spoke about what you did back then.
Yes.
Quite surprising. Why did you choose offline? Because back then, in 2015, if you believed all the pitches that everybody was given, even a massage parlor would go off online, right?
Yes.
Remote, just attach a remote robotic device and then it'll do massage for the customer. Wherever.
Yeah.
That was the kind of thinking that was going on back then, right? Let's take everything online.
Yeah.
And I've said this in one of our earlier episodes. I remember meeting head of a Bangalore-based Shopper Stop, one location.
Okay.
And he was literally shit scared. This was late 2014, early 2015, and the online let's go online thing was so crazy. He had emotion because he was afraid for his job, and then he was asking, "Sir, will retail even exist?"
Yeah.
And then I had to tell him, "Dude, the latest e-commerce retail report in the US industry came out. In spite of all of Amazon's whatever advances there, e-commerce, which is Amazon, is just a part of it. Well, it's a big part of it. Is only 9% in the world's most evolved economy."
Right.
COVID had pushed that number past double digits, but offline will be there. Offline will be a dominant part. If anything, they'll both work with each other. So your decision seems to have been little against the and that sort of thinking always intrigues me. Why offline, and how come you didn't get caught up in the whole let's go online and do everything kind of a?
So I have to admit, we did.
You did.
There was like so much FOMO, like, oh my God, everybody's doing it, everybody's talking about it, we must. But I think what we realized was that given that the market was so nascent, people were naturally only coming to look for food, right? And we realized that, listen, if they come in to look for food, but I can suddenly have a conversation or expose them to the massive variety of products that we have, then there is a much higher chance of them, putting 5 more things into their cart or into their bag and leaving. And that is exactly what happened. They would come in asking for food. We talked to them about toys or different treats, chemical free, preservative free, good, healthy, fun, cool stuff. Give them value addition in terms of tips or, just education in the smallest, littlest ways, have longer conversations with those who are interested. And I think that just helped us to, just build out that awareness about the product portfolio. And everybody asked us, lots of investors asked us, like, why are you doing this offline thing? And we said, well, no, it's not just offline, it's omni-channel. But once they've come in to see it, touch it, trust it, and then they're buying the same thing online. But that's just worked for us. It really has, especially with, it's in some ways, it's also a small win over online because you suddenly run out of dog food. You don't want to wait for 3 days to get it online. You just go to the nearest store, pick it up.
Right.
So that whole omni-channel thing has worked, and that's really the way that we want to build it further as well.
So in some sense, the website is a sort of an introductory thing.
Yes.
And the other way around as well. So
yes.
if they stay closer to a store, or if they can come into a store, the store is an introductory thing for the website.
Absolutely.
And if the website is an introductory mechanism for the store, which is really what omnichannel is all about, right?
Yes, absolutely. So we've just enjoyed that. I think we just are retail people, and now, we're having a lot of fun scaling the whole online part, figuring out how do you replicate an experience that you have offline, which is so high touch, so personalized. If you walk in to the same store, somebody will greet you by your name, they know your dog's name, they know what you want, what you like, and then how do you recreate it online as well? So we're really working on building that part out.
Very interesting. knowing somebody by their name and their dog's name, that's a lot of personalization.
Yeah, it is. And that's what we love, that's what we love, that, Bruno loves these treats. He doesn't like that. He likes squeaky toys. He doesn't like this. And then being able to recommend, good things for Bruno. Where is he in his life journey? Is he a senior dog? Is he a puppy? Is he an adult? What does he need at that time? Does his family need to know about him as he's growing older, etc., etc. So for us, it was really about making that difference, one dog at a time, one home at a time. And I think we've enjoyed that. And plus, I think that just the insights that staying close to our customers on the shop floor gave us was just priceless, completely priceless.
So talk about the retail challenges that you said. You got a few locations, right? And what challenges what worked for you? And at least hearing you out makes me feel that this personalization, the fact that when the customer came in, you obviously opened a world of choices for them, right? Especially if they truly were pet parents as opposed to being pet owners. I'm just contrasting the term.
Right.
And therefore, that itself is one angle.
Right.
I'm just thinking that possibly worked very well for you. And what didn't work for you? So you came back, and then the whole notion was, let's scale this now.
Yeah.
And you've already spoken about, merging with the Bangalore store.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about how the co-founding team came together in a minute or two.
Sure.
But talk about those challenges. What sort of challenges did you face? Because the last 5-6 years, the retail industry has sort of cratered, right? Barring a few, India goes through these huge ups and downs where a few large houses stabilize.
Yeah.
And then there's a sort of a explosion of smaller brands, and then some sort of a detonation of some sort of a economic bomb happens, and it wipes out a bunch of those, and then these stores again stabilize a bit, and then again that happens. I think we are witnessing one right now. But talk about those challenges, retail challenges, and some things that worked and didn't work.
Well, I'd say one of the biggest challenges is that retail is expensive. It needs leases and deposits, and in retail, location is the mantra. And if you opt for that, then again, the rentals are insane. So overcoming that was one. The second was people. We couldn't find any trained staff. How do you, anybody? I mean, just finding people who were willing to deep dive into so much knowledge, right? Otherwise, the retail staff is just coming from one clothing store to the other. But to find willing people who were willing to learn so much was very challenging. And, we had certain sort of expectations on this kind of standards we wanted to set. And I think people was a huge challenge. The third was inventory. What are the right quantities to have, how to prevent stockouts, what are your best sellers, visual merchandising, just the whole experience of designing and creating that journey, the product, the, inventory, the whole sales experience via people. Everything was very, very challenging. It's just we had to train from scratch, and training could take a long time. And then somebody would just in the middle say, no, I can't do this, it's too much, so then you start again and again and again. And we didn't have people who would be trainers, and we didn't have people who would be designing the stores and all of that. So we did everything ourselves, everything. We didn't have the consultants to tell us this is how retail works, because they didn't know anything about pet retail. They didn't have any data to compare it with. There was nobody to learn from. And even in Singapore, sadly, the pet market is very basic. So I did not have an opportunity to learn the pet specific retail. And so it was really just trying every day and learning. There was just no model, nothing, no one to learn from, basically. Big challenge.
My God. So even in existing current retail, fashion retail, you don't really find a lot of trained staff. Nothing against them, but I think we are still yet to see those as real career choices.
Yes, absolutely.
And, for instance, in the US, a lot of people don't know this. Once a store closes, there is a specific set of people that come back and put everything in a very orderly fashion.
Wow.
Right? So there are these rows and rows of shelves of clothes, right? Yeah. And you try it on, you've thrown this something here, yeah. You've thrown this something there. While we are actually shopping, you'll see a store clerk or two actually fold it and then lay it. But if you pay close attention to it, there is a lot of things that is disheveled over a point of time.
Yes.
So at around 2 a.m., these people work on a very specific shift between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
Their whole thing is to put the store back as if it was inaugural day.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine. Those stores are large. Yeah. They are big stores.
Yeah. But Selfridges, the guy that actually changed the face of retail, because until Selfridges opened Marshall Fields in Chicago, and until then it was like what traditional Indian stores are. For example, if you go to places like Crore, Khan Market, there's a counter, and then behind the counter, bhaiya wo dikhao, ye dikhao. So that Selfridges, the Western market used to be like that, and Selfridges came in, and then he said, nothing doing, I'm going to put all the wares on shelves, and then customers can self-select. But what that does is it creates that additional overhead of maintaining and putting things back. And funny thing is, today when we go shopping, I tell my wife, you know what? She casually would pull out a piece of clothing, and then she would try it on, and then she would put it back. And for me, I'm thinking about that person that comes at 2 a.m. in the morning, and then I know they're paid for it. And then I put myself in their shoes and then think, man, I can't believe, so many clothes are strewn around and my shift is gone. So I would say, let's have some empathy and to the best extent possible, put it back the same way it is. So there's much less painful for them.
Yeah, no, that's true. And not everybody thinks about that, And I love how you brought up that example of Selfridges, because what a phenomenal experience they created. Truly.
Yeah. My luck is that the very first store of Marshall Fields, which opened in Chicago, I used to live very close to that.
Okay.
So I got to, and then eventually Marshall Fields today was subsumed by Macy's, has been subsumed by Macy's chain. So that name, I think, only exists in history. Marshall Field himself has created a lot of revolution in retailing, but it was Selfridges that actually changed. And then there's John Wanamaker, who was in the furniture retail side of it. So that's awesome. Let's come back to your story. How did talk about the founding team? How did it come together? Was it a result of the merger, or is there more to the story?
Yes, it was very much a result of the merger. The store that we merged with was called Pause the Pet Store, and it was run by a couple, Ridhima and Sandeep, and the three of us have been working together for a long time, and so it was just felt very natural, and we all have our areas of expertise. And then 2 years ago, my husband joined. He brought in a different set of expertise. We got in a CFO, we got in operations, we got in lots of good expertise who came in as co-founders, and they're people that I know, that I trust, and they all come in with very solid expertise, and it's been amazing to work with a team that challenges you, that pushes you, that has your back, and that is equally passionate about the little things that most other businesses may not really look at, because it's a very values driven business. It is about the pets first, and so if there's something that we don't think is good, or we would not give it to our dogs, it's not going on our shelf, no matter how much it may be selling on Amazon or wherever else. So it's just nice to work with like-minded people, and yet people with such diverse thoughts that you just bring those different sparks to the table.
Man, awesome! There's so much that you've said. There are a lot of things I loved about what you just said, and then just goes to show I think what a fabulous job you've done. And there's so much I think you brought to it, at least from the point that I can see. So that's the founding team. Let's talk about decisions. What have been some decisions that have worked for you and what haven't?
One of the big ones that hasn't worked was that when we merged the companies, we decided let Heads Up for Tails be a product-led company, and let's do multi-brand with another brand because people want a one-stop shop, and that just didn't work. We set up a new store with a new brand, and we realized that we were so stretched. So we have 2 websites and 2 Instagram pages and 2 Facebooks and 2 stores, and just the craziness associated with it. We weren't the market wasn't ready. We weren't ready. It was a complete disaster. So we shut it down, made everything Heads Up for Tails, and it's been so much easier ever since. So that's definitely one thing that I remember that just didn't work. I think what worked. I think in terms of just product innovation, we've all been we follow the international market very closely. We're all coming from a space of being pet parents, solving problems. So I think just those decisions have come about very easily. Like, what are we doing to solve a particular problem, or how do we want to approach, or what values are we made on, what will we not compromise on? So all of those things have been made easily. And of course, there is difference of opinion when we have to make a decision. But we leave it to the expert. We give feedback and suggestions, but we leave it to that expert in that particular area to finally make a decision, because I think we're very comfortable with the fact that everybody brings different skill sets. So the person with the best skills wins in most cases when there's a tough decision in that specific area. So if it was a finance decision, I may give my feedback, but I'll leave it to my CFO to make his choice, and I know that he'll do the right thing.
Awesome. So we are in the final stretches here. So one question about when did it occur to you? It's one thing to have a gut feel that this will be big.
Yeah.
But managing success is not easy either.
No.
Right? And everything, like Thomas Alva Edison says, success, very few people recognize success because it shows up in overalls, like work clothes, right? It's got a lot of work that goes into it. You back 2015, you've raised seed money from friends and family and HNIs. At what point of time did it occur to you that, yes, we are truly on the path to this becoming bigger? When did that happen? And then that's when you decided to take a plunge and then do professional fundraising. Talk about that a bit.
So I think 2018, we opened some very high stake stores for a company our size. We did Khan Market, which is more expensive than Manhattan. We did Galleria and a couple of more really, high stake stores for a small company, saying that, this little by little is not working. We need to just make a mark and just be out there. And I think that putting those little pins on the map in key cities really got us that buzz and attention that we needed. And just knowing that we could sustain rentals and overheads like that and not drown made us feel that, we can do this. We really can. And plus, I think then the validation with that comes with, raising, higher amounts of money. So even now even our bigger next professional round was HNIs, wasn't friends and family, but it was family offices, because we still, again, even for us, the investors, they have to feel what we're feeling. They have to have a long-term vision. It's not that, valuation exit game only. It's so much more. And so we've been very selective about who we brought on board, people who know that this is a long-term game. And I think just that credibility and of course, the push and the ability to fix our back end and improve our front end that, that money has been able to give us has been, amazing. And we're, very grateful that all of our investors have that, they are in the same value system, wanting to make that everyday impact. And we've really worked hard on especially this year in the middle of all of this craziness, we've worked really hard on building out a lot of our back end with better systems, an ERP, better warehousing, lots of stuff. So, yeah.
On the leadership front, was there ever a challenge? It's one thing to be able to, because you're the person behind the idea. At some point in time, there always comes with professional capital comes a tug of war saying that, okay, we understand it's your idea. We are awesome. You can still retain ownership and all of that, but it requires professional management to run stuff like that. Those conversations happen in quite a few companies. But from what I can tell and from what I can see, I think the gravitas, the wisdom, so the wherewithal that you have, I think has stood you in good stead. Was there ever a question of leadership? Did you ever have to justify yourself?
Not yet. I've worked very hard to kind of keep myself updated as well, because at every stage, I think starting a business is easy. Scaling it is enormously hard. And so, I'm constantly learning, growing, reading up, trying to see, what we can absorb from other companies who are doing it right. So I think that, I have tried to stay relevant, but I think I'm very okay with somebody else coming in at the point when I feel that I've outgrown this in terms of expertise and, be able to contribute towards the more creative side, which is what I love, or the foundation side, which is again something I'm so passionate about. So as long as it's just being led well, I'm very happy. But it hasn't come to that point just yet.
So in that scale, was there a pivot point where there was an inflection point where the S curve happened?
I would say that was 2018.
2018. Okay.
Yeah, we did more stores than we had, high stakes stores. They were doing well. I think it was a very exciting year.
And true to what real retail is, it was a combination of professional capital coming in and you going out and opening, because retail is about presence. You have to have the presence. You have to be there. Once a product gets into the realm of experiential product, where you have to touch it, feel it, and then the pet needs to like it. And then that's when your presence really makes a difference. So that's 2018.
Absolutely. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then we revamped the website. We really have, we started marketing it, scaling it up. So I think lots of things happened in that year.
What's the larger vision?
The larger vision is really for every home to experience the joys of raising pets as family. That truly is, because we know how much it brings to every home and how special it is. And, as far as business wise, I mean, that's a big vision, because if I translate it into business, it means so much being in every home, a Huff product in every home that has a pet also. So, and that's global. It's a big worldwide vision. We want to do Singapore next. We want to, we know that we can do so much. We see so much white space, good white space, little bits that haven't been addressed. And there's lots of ideas for product, for experience. We've traveled the world and seen pet stores. Online, I think a lot of people have cracked it, but offline, I don't think that they have at all. And so, there's lots of hope for doing lots of good things. But the larger aim is to make that impact.
So this, so it's been 12 years is quite. I wouldn't say a very long journey, because building enduring institutions takes time and effort. When you spoke about those personal greetings, something struck me. Sam Walton, when he was still running Walmart, there was this period when a lot of the baby boomers who had reached 65, they had retired. So a lot of them didn't have jobs. So he, at least, I think whatever's out in the internet and out there is credited to him. He came up with this notion of having a greeter at a Walmart.
Wow.
Obviously, he doesn't know your name or anything of that sort, but they're 65 plus. Obviously, they and some of them can't do heavy lifting. Move the crates or anything of that sort. So they stand at the entrance. All they would say is "Welcome to Walmart."
Wow.
And apparently those, I think 4 or 5 years, and this happened around the time 2006 to 2012. And I've seen that personally myself, because I used to live in the US at that time. And for an economic journalist, it sounds like something cheesy, something just a profit motive would do, right? But for a person who's had a long day and then who's coming in to shop, which store actually tells you welcome?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hardly anyone does, right?
Right.
So that is supposed to have contributed a few percentage points of growth. And so it's a twin thing. One is it helped Walmart's growth, and it also gave employment to a lot of these older people.
That's
right?
lovely, actually. That's really sweet and well thought too.
So I'm going to ask you sort of the apocalyptic question. You've done a fabulous job. You've grown. There's a long journey ahead still. Do you ever feel this? You might all lose this at some point in time. Do you ever lose sleep over that?
Yes. Definitely. I think they say, right, the higher you climb, the harder you will fall. But definitely we keep, every now and then we hear, okay, all the big guys are getting into it. Nike's gotten into it. Aditya Birla is getting into it. Lots and lots of the big companies are coming in. Reliance, there's all these rumors. I don't know, Ferns and Petals has just gotten into it. So, they have much bigger, way deeper pockets, much bigger companies, people, all of that infrastructure to support it. So every now and then we feel, will we be able to sustain once they come in, and they may come in with crazy discounting policies and, all of that stuff. But I also know in my heart that it may be a tough fight, but it'll be a fight that I am very willing to go all out with, because I know that my heart is in the right place, and I think that that's what matters. I want to have fun. I want to be able to know that I'm, making a difference. I want to build, we are all about innovation. We built out some amazing products along the way. And I think that if we continue to do what we do, we'll be okay.
You must have already experienced a sense of that, isn't it? If clones or copy.
Oh, yes. Tons of copycat brands have come up. Tons and tons.
Right.
So, anything that we put up on the shelves literally gets picked up and copied. So I think that's just, it used to bother me a lot. Now I realize that it's just part of that growth journey, and I need to be accepting of that. But that's that.
I suppose you've taken copying as a compliment.
I hope I can do that. Not quite yet.
Any kids over the years? Okay.
I have a 7-year-old daughter.
Okay.
Yes, and I have two doggies that I share, my life with.
Okay.
So that's where we are right now.
Awesome. Terrific. Do you read, Rashi? Do you find time to read? You read?
I love reading.
Oh, what's on your reading list?
I just finished the Netflix book. I don't know if you've read it. It is so. It's got some fantastic ideas about a business. I don't quite know if we can do that in India, but I'm going to try some of the concepts. And I read lots. Of course I like fiction, but I also love business books. So I'm always reading. It's it's just part of. I have to have it in my day. So,
if you've been to a Decathlon store,
yes.
Actually, Decathlon is a perfect example of the fact that you can. Until I saw Decathlon, I would have notions that you could create something different in India, but it will still be a poorer cousin or poorer version of what you have somewhere else. But Decathlon changed that notion for me.
Yeah, they've done an incredible job.
From pricing to experience to the website, and the funny thing is it's not even in well-to-do neighborhoods, right?
Yes.
Even in really average neighborhoods, they've put up stores, they've sustained, and the funny thing is the pandemic has only fed into this desire to find the sporty athletic side.
Yes, absolutely.
Barely has, right? So
No, but again, they just captured a niche which was always there, but just never focused on, I mean, sports is such an important part of everybody's life, of fitness and health and all of that. And it's great that they've built this out, and it's so affordable, and it's amazing. So that's definitely, a case study that we actually talk about that in the company a lot, the way that they built out decathlon. It's fantastic.
So, there's Madhu Sapre, Madhu Sapre, right?
Yes.
So she was the finalist for, I think, Miss Universe or Miss World.
Yeah.
And each of the contestants were asked a question. I remember this because I think I was in my high teens back then. And if you were to become the president or prime minister of your country, what would you do? And poor lady, pretty, but she lost. She said, my country is very, very backward in sports, but there's a lot of raw talent. I would build a huge stadium that would give life to a lot of athletic dreams, is what she said. Okay, I think if she had contested now, and then that answer would have won her the crown.
I agree. It's just about timing.
Timing.
Where we were then and where we are now.
Right.
Absolutely.
So for women out there and entrepreneurs in general, 2 cents from you, what do you think they should be doing to their businesses, and any words of wisdom?
Oh gosh, I would say just follow your dreams. I mean, yes, you have to be realistic, but I think that we've lost, or we don't quite believe in our gut enough. We have to have that solitude and our connection with ourselves to be able to listen to our gut, and it may tell us that we're doing this all wrong, and it may just give you, the gut is always just that very faint whisper. So, if you can learn to hear it out, you won't really go wrong. And I would say just pursue and, persevere. I think that, as a woman entrepreneur, you need a lot of grit, a lot of grit. So just that perseverance, don't give up. And I think it's not about taking big steps. It's about taking baby steps. As long as it's not about the race, but it's about just moving forward, however slow you go. We sometimes give up because we feel that, it's too slow and we can't do this, and there's too many challenges, and there's kids and families and in-laws and, 100 other things. But I think it's about taking that one step at a time. So very simple, but I know that, it can be very powerful if you think about it like that, and don't make big goals at that one time, but little by little, you're moving towards where you want to get to.
My God. Trust your gut, take baby steps.
Yes.
And towards the goal.
Absolutely.
But I if it had come from anyone else, I would have thought that is like nice to hear stuff. But you've lived every bit of that. I've said this earlier in the recording, saying that gut, this is special. This episode is going to be special. Rashi, fantastic, fabulous. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. And thank you for being so straight from the heart. That's exactly what we wanted.
Thank you, Krishna. Thank you for giving me this platform to be able to tell my story, and for such a lovely conversation. Very grateful.
So we say this to every speaker, Maharajas of Scale. It was fantastic. Maharajas of Scale wishes this Maharani of Scale and her vision is realized. You scale greater peaks, and when you scale another peak in your journey, Maharajas of Scale will come back and interview this Maharani again, to see what that vantage point looks like and how the worldview has changed from there. So we wish you the very best.
Thank you so much, and I wish the same for you. I hope this goes places, and hope that these little tidbits can inspire so many more people who may be thinking about what to do next or how to move forward. So more power to you.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this story. If this story made a difference to you, tell us by leaving a comment on the website or our social media channels. Help us spread the love by subscribing, liking, and sharing our show. We welcome speaker suggestions and collaboration. Write to me at tanya@maharajasofscale.com.